Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster at Foster Web Marketing here for another exciting webinar presentation. Wait, I'm getting the hand up. We waiting for everybody to get on? Okay. Am I good, Molly? Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. Once again, Tom Foster here at Foster Web Marketing, here to present a very exciting topic on our May webinar, all about content. And this is a little bit different than all the zillions of content webinars and speeches and presentations that we've done in the past. And we've got a full house here today, so it's pretty exciting. Got a lot of people registered. And I've got with me one of our marketing analysts, Jamie Kelly.
Hi, everybody.
And Lindsay Dare, who runs our content for us. Say hi, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone.
So today, guys, we have we're going to be really talking about something that is foundational to everything that you're going to be doing online, which is content. So we're talking about the purpose of content, the strategy of content, and how you execute it. The pillars of content marketing. And once again, just some housekeeping items. As everybody knows that has been here before, any questions that you have, please pop it in that little box down there for questions, and we will get to them along the way or answer them at the end. And if we don't get to them all, we'll respond in emails to you guys later. And we'll have some resource at the end for help, and let's get started. So the 10 commandments, once again, we're going down the 10 marketing commandments according to Foster Web Marketing. We get this question a lot over the years about what do I do first, what do I do next, what's the priority, and this is number 5. So we've already done number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 is what we're doing this month. If you want to know what the other webinars were, you can go to fwm.tips and see those other webinars. They're available to you at any time. So here we are. Number 5, thou shalt create and promote excellent content.
Yeah, that's right. The first 4 are really sort of foundational things that really should be put in place before, ideally as soon as possible. If you can do them before you develop a web presence, that would be ideal. But now we're getting into sort of the nitty-gritty of it, how to do the day-to-day stuff that can really set yourself up to be successful long-term. And there's really no way to do it without content.
That's right. Content is the foundation. Content is king. And Google loves content. All search engines love content. Social media loves it. Everything. You can't do SEO without content. Video is content. Blogs are content. Everything is based on content. And so we're going to tell you how to do it today. I know that content is very important to Jamie. And, of course, Lindsay runs our content division at Foster Web Marketing. How many writers and editors do we have with us now, Lindsay?
Right now we have roughly 20 between writers and editors.
So we know what we're doing here, and all of them are U.S.-based, by the way, and some of them are lawyers, some of them are lots of different professions, and so we're going to get into it now. So, Jamie, let's talk about your content strategy right here. Why do you want to do content?
Well, you already said it a little bit. You said content's very important to me as an SEO professional, and that's because SEO and content overlap to a great degree. You can't really have one without the other. If you don't have any content, you have nothing to SEO. If you don't have any SEO in your content, you're not going to do much with it. The two operate in tandem to a large extent. And the reason for it all is because you want to be showing up when people do searches in Google or any of the other search engines. The only way you can do that is by providing content. Content that's well written, content that's well thought out, content that people want to find, content that people are going to be looking for. It's really the only way to get your site found long-term and consistently. You can do lots of other things. There's paid advertising options. You have the local results that we've talked about beforehand, but they all sort of pale in comparison when it comes down to it. The organic search results are where the majority of people are going to generate most of their traffic.
And lots of things have changed. And Jamie, you're an SEO guy, right? And you've been around a while, not as long as I've been around.
True.
And there's people that, all right, that's all right. And there's people that are on this call that have been around a long time, and we remember the early days of content, and we wrote content really for search engines, overly optimized, keyword stuffing. where it was really just, we're just trying to rank number one for, Milwaukee personal injury attorney or whatever we're trying to do. Is that what we're talking about today?
No, we're out of the Mad Lib style web content creation era. Google's a lot smarter than it was last year. Google's immensely smarter than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they've come a long way in what they're looking for, what they need to be fed in order to find you. And they're at a point now where they don't really want you to pay attention to them. They are the machine designed to get your message from your mouth to your visitors, and you don't need to be optimizing for the machine. You need to be optimizing for the end user.
So we're not. Let's make that very clear, everybody. We're not doing content for search engine optimization. In other words, we're not doing content for the sake of ranking. We're doing content for the sake of the user experience, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about. Google is very smart now, and that's what they want you to do. As a matter of fact, that's why Panda and all the other algorithms came out, to stop over-optimization of content, correct?
Correct. And we've actually got a great example that we'll get into here in a little bit that demonstrates just how effective good content can be today and how different it would have been not even that long ago, even 1 or 2 years ago.
And so we've got some examples here, but another thing that I want to say before we move on is, back in the day, and I even stood up on the stage years ago with Ben Glass talking about content, tons and tons of content. That's what search engines love. Is that the case today?
It's not as cut and dry as that. They like consistent content. They like you updating your site regularly, but it's not about volume as much as it is quality.
Quality and relevance.
If you can only do a few pieces a month, or whatever, fill in the blank. If you can only do X, just make sure whatever you're doing as well as you can. A handful of well-written pieces are going to do way better than 5 times that number with a C+ effort.
And also, those of you that have had websites for years and years and years, like we have, and like many of you on this call, you have to do a content audit, which means that you got to clean up your old content. It's not about, because why? Because stuff gets jammed up. Google's not going to index all that stuff. It's looking for good, relevant content.
Exactly right. Some stuff that was relevant 2 years ago might not be relevant anymore. Some stuff that was optimized according to best practices 2 years ago is going to be extremely over-optimized by today's standards.
Right.
There's a lot of benefits to be had by going in and trimming the fat every once in a while and cleaning up old content that's no longer relevant to you or whatever it is you practice, or also that does not adhere to current best web marketing standards. Is only going to be beneficial to get rid of.
Right, and just one thing before we move on. In no way should you ever copy or plagiarize other content, correct?
Never, ever.
That's like against the rules.
For any reason.
And against the law.
It's plagiarism.
Right, that's called plagiarism. Well, you were told not to do that as a child, and we're telling you again.
It still applies.
Okay. Now, this is really some examples of the kind of content that you should be doing. So, advice from you, what do we mean by that?
So, give people what they're looking for, and it can be really helpful to flip the table around and think about it from your potential client or customer's point of view. What do you find people want to know when they come to you? What sort of questions do they ask you? How can you demonstrate that knowledge base that you have when you're in front of people to an even wider audience online? What are the sorts of questions that get asked? Do you run into common misunderstandings in your practice? Things that you can do to demonstrate your authority and knowledge, how great you are in every sense of the word. Those are the sorts of things that are going to be beneficial to not just the people that you interact with in person, but that same message applies on a much broader scale.
Yeah, you're a professional. People are coming to you for advice, right? You're an attorney or a doctor or whatever you're doing. That's what they're doing. They want to come there and get their questions answered. So that's the second thing we have there, answers to questions, right? Mm-hmm. When we go to search engines, we're typing in questions. That's what we're looking for. And really, we're not going past page 1.
No.
Generally speaking, unless we're not getting the answer, then we'll go past page 1, right?
Right. Depending on exactly which study you look at, anywhere from 80 to 99% of searches never leave the first page.
Right. As a matter of fact, I was just doing a search last night with my wife about which one is better, Blue Apron or what's the other one? Blue Apron or it's that dinner delivery service.
Yeah. There's several. I don't know.
Yeah,
Blue
exactly.
Apron or
well, anyway, you get it. I can't remember the other name of it. See, there you go. That's how smart I am. The other thing is examples of past successes. These are case stories, profiles, things that you've done in the past that are typical of the kind of cases or the kind of clients, patients, whatever you want in the future, right? You want to demonstrate that you've done this in the past to attract the similar kind of thing.
People are vetting you when they come to your website. The consumer is smart enough to understand that ranking well in a search is very different from relevant industry experience, and they're not going to be impressed necessarily by the fact that you're able to get to the top 2 or 3 positions on Google, as much as they're going to be impressed by more relevant things that you can show them, past successes, whether it be big wins in trials, big medical developments, whatever the case may be. If you're able to demonstrate the most relevant successes that are going to convert them from a visitor into a potential customer or client, that's way more relevant.
Yep, and that's like all informational, and then we got here opinions. So that's like blogs and what you think about things. Put your personality in there, right?
Yeah, don't be afraid to get original, get creative, and inject some personality. What separates you from the suit or the jacket that you wear?
Yep. Okay, and obviously all of these are just different examples. This will all strengthen your authority on site. That's how you rank higher than other competitors, the quality and the relevance of your content. All right, so everybody's convinced that you got to do content. I hope so, because it is the foundation of everything. It's like the 4 wheels on your car. You're not going anywhere without it. And so let's talk about how we create some content. So Lindsay, thank you for sitting patiently, but tell us a little bit about how to start creating content.
Well, when you're looking to start creating content, you want to keep a few things in mind, which would be basically for the reasoning of why you're writing content. New content on your site is going to keep your site fresh and relevant. It's also going to help potential clients find your site, especially if you're providing high-quality content that's relevant to your business and your practice areas, and specifically your perfect client. You don't want to write articles and content about something that you don't necessarily want to attract that type of client for. You also want to attempt to answer questions that your potential clients are asking. That way you can really try to establish yourself as an expert in this area.
Yeah, and tips and advice, right? That's another one?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Give them advice.
So,
go ahead.
Exactly. You really, really want to write, like I said, about the types of cases that you want to attract. If you're interested in attracting runners to your podiatry practice, you want to write about these running injuries. If you're interested in truck accident victims, you're going to write about truck accidents and why there's serious problems and issues that you may come across if you're a person that's experiencing those problems. And like Tom said, tips and safety for personal injury attorneys. You want to talk about preventative health information, perhaps. For doctors, I'm sorry, but for personal injury attorneys, again, car accidents, truck accidents, things that happen in order for a person to sustain those injuries.
And don't make the mistake, people, that, people don't type in truck accident lawyer, okay? That's just not what they do. Well, that's not true. Other lawyers type it in to see who their competitors are for that search term, and so do pay-per-click people and other SEO people that are trying to get your business. So, like Jamie, give me an idea of like what you would do to help someone get ranked for truck accidents in order to get that business.
So there's a lot more to any particular either legal practice area or subfield in the medical practice than just that one keyword term, whether it be car accident attorney or truck accident lawyer or what have you. There's dozens and dozens of permutations of different keywords that Google recognizes as all being related together to in truck accidents in this example. It's called LSI, latent semantic indexing, and Google gets smarter and smarter every day at recognizing the relationship between these extant keywords that might not even appear related on the surface level, but the more content we provide them and the more content that they read and digest, the better they're getting at determining these relationships between keywords. So you could write an article that may not say anything directly related to truck accidents. That might not be the best way to go about it, but in theory it's possible to write about just injuries in general, car accident statistics in general, and have that in theory be ranking perhaps not as well as it could be if it were a little more focused, but those relationships are there, and you don't need to be quite as heavy-handed with the keyword targeting as you have in the past.
Yeah, and another thing, specific to the truck accident stuff is that people don't, if you just write about truck accidents, you're going to only get people that were driving in a truck that were in an accident. And that's not what you're after. You're after the individual that was in a car accident that was hit by a truck. And so they don't know that that's a different area of the law that you guys do. So think about that. And that's true. You want to make sure that you're covering all the fringes, not just that main area. Sure, you can have a practice area, but that's why you have informational articles. That's why you have blog posts. That's why you have frequently asked questions, case results, all that stuff, which hits the fringe of all that. You're trying to have lots of different bait of content out there to capture those searches.
That's absolutely right. One other untapped area for topic generation is what your competitors are doing, either for a particular search term or phrase or just in general. Are you constantly getting beat out by the guy across town? Go to his site, see what sorts of things he's writing about, see how he's structuring his content, see how he's structuring his titles or his headlines, what's different about what he's providing and what you're providing.
And make sure he's really getting business for it too.
That's true.
Because just because he's ranking higher than you on certain things, it doesn't necessarily mean, because if you're just typing in those vanity keywords, truck, accident, lawyer, that doesn't necessarily mean he's getting business from that. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because this is our next topic. And so, we are quite often asked to find topic ideas and help people market themselves online. So how do we do this, Jamie and Lindsay? Lindsay, why don't you start?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There are several places to start, as you can see from the list. But first, you really want to think about evergreen content that's always going to be relevant to your business, and general information that your potential clients may need about information regarding how to work with your firm. You basically want to lay the groundwork with that basic information on your site. You also want to look at your own cases and work toward the clients you want again. You can also find information in trade journals.
I want to talk about that for a minute. Sorry, Lindsay.
Sure.
Your own cases, because this is hidden gold. And this is something that we've had some tremendous success with, which all of you, I'm assuming, that are listening to this webinar are experienced attorneys or experienced doctors or experienced businessmen that have done these things in the past. And that is content. That is the gold of content. Why are there more lawyer and doctor shows than anything else out there? Because people are interested in this area. They want to see, doctors save people. And how they do it. And they want to see lawyers, bring people to justice, right? And so talk about the cases. And when I say that, I don't mean tell me how much you got or tell me what the $1 million verdict was or the confidential settlement for a slip and fall. That's not enough. We want to hear the juice. We want to hear the meat of it. 500 words. Show me some pictures. If you can get a picture with you shaking hands with the client. These are the new style of case results, right?
Yeah, they can be very effective. Every case has a story, whether it be a legal case or a particularly interesting medical case or some other business success story. They all have intricacies that are lost if all you boil them down to is a monetary figure.
And you guys do this all the time when you get together your bar associations and you're talking about your cases. You're talking about this other guy referred this case to me, or you got this case from another where this other lawyer was only going to do said it was only worth $25,000. You got $1 million for it. These stories happen all the time. These are the kind of stories that you want to tell online. But don't use lawyer legalese terminology. Tell it like you're telling your neighbor that doesn't understand lawyer talk, or what you do when you tell your kids or your wife that doesn't understand lawyer talk, right?
It's the how and the why that are going to be more important than the final settlement figure.
Right, exactly. The final settlement, that's the end of the story. That's not the beginning of the story, right? Mm-hmm. You could say, well, how did I get this $1 million verdict from a claim that was worth only $25,000 to Allstate or State Farm or whatever? This is the story of how that happened. There's multiple ways to do that, but you're right, Lindsay. That is really the gold at your feet right now that everybody can take advantage of. And the thing about that is that's unique to you. That's unique to you. That's a story that's unique to you.
It's a great way to sort of further focus your entire website on more of those types of clients. If you ask a personal injury attorney what their perfect client is, their first answer might be, oh, people in car accidents. But even within that subset of people, there's car accident cases you like and car accident cases you don't like. And what's the difference between those? What are the ones you like? What are the ones that are profitable for you? The ones that you're able to really work effectively? And what can you be doing from a content perspective to attract more of those clients without attracting the ones that are headaches that end up costing you money at the end of the day? There's a lot of ways that you can generate cases that aren't great cases for you. But there's also ways to flip that.
Okay, Lindsay, go ahead. Let's go down this list. What do you mean by trade journals and associations?
Well, basically, associations would be State Bar Association, things like that, things that you can pull information from, like new, recent news, something like that, or even statistics. Like the State Bar of Texas has a general legal info for the public on their site. And that's a really great resource to use, specifically, obviously, if it's relevant to you. But they can provide a lot of really great information for you that you could relay to your client. Of course, local and national news sites. We have Google Alerts listed here. You can actually set up Google Alerts and have the news relevant to your field, your practice areas, and your location delivered directly to your inbox, so you can stay on top of this news and write content about this kind of information for your clients and potential clients to see, because anything related in terms of news to your practice areas is something good that will help your clients to understand that you're on top of your business and you know what's going on in the world around you.
And let me interrupt you again. I'm sorry, but that is like a perfect place to get ideas for new topics. If you do train accidents, talking about the Amtrak, accident that just happened. And this is not, I'm not saying some consider it ambulance chasing. If you're out there saying if you were in the Amtrak accident, you need a lawyer, that's ambulance chasing. But if you put out good content that explains what happened, or your opinion piece, that's your opinion piece. You're entitled to it. So put a blog post about it. But yes, Google Alerts is a great way to get breaking news stories delivered every day to your inbox and gives you a lot of content ideas.
Exactly. Okay. It's a source that we use quite often when creating content. Absolutely. But the next idea that we generally go to would be seasons and holidays, driving in wintry weather, Super Bowl drinking and driving, tailgating season, spring runner injuries or pedestrian accidents. These are all great ways to attract your client and just get good information on your site. Again, providing tips for your potential clients and for your readers is a great way to establish yourself as an expert in the field. You are showing them that you are aware of what's going on around you and not just solely focused on getting cases, for example.
Yep, tips and tricks. And, Bob Battle, a DUI lawyer here in Virginia who's very successful, puts out a newsletter and sends out emails and stuff and puts content on his website about, obviously after New Year's, all the holidays, right? He gives you tips before and after about what to do. So you can utilize these seasonal occasions for just about anything. We got Memorial Day coming up, so everybody's going to go nuts. So what can you do to take advantage of that? What do you mean by government websites, Lindsay? What is this here?
This is mainly for statistics, like the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, State Department of Transportation sites. Again, this is all information that you want to really dig into and pull out to provide statistics, what's happening with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Your readers, you really want to provide them with a groundwork, with a go-to to find out what's going on with the hot topics or with each government entity in terms of like Centers for Disease Control or, again, the National Traffic Safety Administration. They have a lot of safety weeks and months for different areas, like Motorcycle Safety Month, car accidents, you know what I mean. So basically, if we come, let's see, last month was Motorcycle Safety Month, and I remember working with Jamie on making sure that we wrote content based on that topic, just because it's a great way to inform people that basically you are informed you know what's going on, and it just, again, allows you to lay a groundwork for people to continue to come back to you to find this information.
Right, and if there's a change in the tax code that's good for tax guys, bankruptcy guys. So it's not just, personal injury stuff. Government websites have tons and tons of content that you can, discuss, put out there, dumb down for your clients, And so that's a great suggestion there. What is this nonprofit sites? What do you mean by that?
This would include the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, the National Sleep Foundation, American Diabetes Foundation, American Heart Association, and again, just like with the government websites, it's just a great place to pull information from and keep your readers informed. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety provides a lot of good information
Is that like
about safety articles. Yes, that's actually a magazine.
Right.
So these, again, are just good places to get information. If you wanted any information based on any of this, I think going to and ensure that it's a reputable site. You don't want to go to a site that's dodgy and pull your information and post about it. Be absolutely sure that you're using reputable sites when quoting statistics or any kind of information about any of the topics we've suggested.
That's a good point about commenting and quoting, making sure that you citation them well, give proper citation?
Yes, I believe this is laid out explicitly a little further on in the slideshow. But yes, please always cite statistics. If you're going through the trouble of looking up these statistics, if you're writing an article about the alarming increase in 18-wheeler accidents in your state, and you go to your state's transportation board and look up the numbers to verify this claim that you're making, you've already done all the research. Adding the link to verify your claim is just 10 seconds of extra work. The payoff for that is you further establish your own authority. You're proving to people, hey, I know what I'm talking about. Look at the research I did. And to that end, you want to make sure that you're using, like Lindsay said, the most reputable sources possible. If you find yourself not including links to statistics or studies because you're hesitant to link people to that site, that's an indication that you want to find a different statistic to use, perhaps.
And firm news is like stuff that's going on, somebody's birthday, right? Hey, you could talk about somebody that's been with you for 20 years. People are interested in that. Their friends and family are interested in that. A little bit more social, right?
Human interest pieces have been a staple of news content and marketing for forever, really, and the same applies online. People like hearing the feel-good stories about, so-and-so in your office who just had their 10th work anniversary, someone had a baby.
Right.
Stuff fits well in a firm news section, fits well in a newsletter or an e-newsletter. There's a place for that non-on-topic information as well.
And community involvement. If you participate in charity, if you've been involved in anything like that, if you're in a race, if you're raising money.
And I believe this will be the full topic of next month's webinar.
Yeah.
And you totally should, but people enjoy hearing this sort of information the same they do the firm news. Don't be afraid to humble brag a little bit about the charitable work that you do with your community.
And then this is really the State Department. This is like the other stuff that we were talking about. All right, so after you get this information, then you're thinking about strategy. So what are we talking about here, Lindsay?
Well, basically, first you want to determine your goals. If your goal for writing a piece is to get more cases for a specific practice area or just to get your name out there as an expert on a specific topic matter, then you want to be sure that you're adhering to these goals. Like review your goals throughout while you're writing the document, just to be sure that you're not starting somewhere and then going completely off base and losing focus on what you're actually hoping to gain out of writing this piece of content.
So this is the kind of questions that you want to be asking yourself as you're putting out this piece of content. Is it to your perfect client? We talked about this before, the perfect client exercise. You can have several perfect clients for different practice areas. So this particular content, is it going to attract who you want as a client?
And I think it's important to point out here that we're not even in the writing process yet. This is all before you open up Word or put pen to paper, so to speak. The strategy is essential and also needs to be done prior to the writing. It will help you immensely down the road if, like Lindsay said, you have the goals for this particular piece of content laid out beforehand. You can run into just some fundamental roadblocks and hiccups if you don't think about these things beforehand. Something as simple as, oh, we should put this on Twitter. Well, is our title for the article and a short hook a tweetable length? Is it too long? Is it going to get cut off? Is it going to look dumb? We should have an alternative plan already if we're going to be tweeting it. Answering those simple questions, where am I going to put this? What are we going to do with this once it's done? Before you start writing helps you plan the entire process and not get caught off guard down the line.
And making sure there's something unique about it. What is a call to action if you want that in there? And here's one, and this is my favorite. Do you have an editor? Because Lord knows I've gotten in a lot of trouble with Lindsay and the content, putting stuff out there without having it edited. But I'm a lot better now. But that's really important because you're not going to catch all your stuff. You want to have another set of eyeballs on it, right?
Nobody can catch all of their own mistakes. And having an editor doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and hire a professional writer or editor. Having anybody take a second look at your content is going to be more helpful than even running spell check by yourself. You're going to overlook awkward sentence structures, or if you accidentally omit a word in a sentence, you're going to overlook it most of the time because you remember what you meant to write and you're not reading actually what's on the page the way somebody else will.
And this is just more of the same, right? Jamie, let's talk about this real quick.
Exactly. So we covered some of these already, but before you begin writing, thinking about what you're going to do with the content. Obviously, it's going to be on your website, but where else can you make use of it? If you're active and participating in social media, you probably have a preferred outlet or two. Maybe you're tremendously active on all of them and want to be making use of all of them. All of that's fine, but play to your strengths. Don't waste the time coming up with some awesome Google Plus strategy if this is going to be your first Google Plus post in the past 23 and a half months or something. You might be better off focusing your efforts where you can expect the largest gains to be made. So think about things like your largest or most popular social media followings. How can you make use of them? Are you going to promote this post? Do you have a budget in mind? Do you have demographic targets in mind? These are all questions that you should be answering before you begin writing because they will, to a certain extent, inform the writing process going forward. They'll change the shape of what you ultimately end up with. These last two here might not apply to every piece of content, but if you come across something really big, if you land a tremendous case that's getting press coverage, it might be worthy of putting out a press release about it. Sometimes, a library article on your website might not actually be the best outlet for what you have to say. There are larger audiences out there, and in some cases, press releases might be appropriate.
And this is good for if you got a big giant case, right? That demands attention. Mm-hmm. For instance, our good friend and client Brian Beckham, VB Attorneys down there in Houston, when he was involved in the Captain Phillips case, got a ton of attention because of that involvement, and he ended up getting a lot of press, interviews, television interviews, and obviously press releases. Mm-hmm. We've done that for a variety of clients, and you can do that too for things that are worthy. Opening up another office, not so much a press release. Launching your new website, sad to say, but not much of a press release. But being involved in big cases, yeah, right.
Right. Don't forget about it as a potential option.
Correct. What about this forums and stuff? What do you mean by that?
It all depends on you, and this will vary from person to person. But if you participate in, and Lindsay already covered some of these a little bit when we talked about topic ideas, but if you participate in community groups, either industry groups, I've got them here, forums, message boards, listservs. If you already have established dialogues with other professionals within your industry, would any of them perhaps be interested in the content you have? Are they, the first question you have to answer is, are they going to be okay with a little, shameless self-promotion? Some online communities are, some less so. But if you are already aware of some of these additional outlets that might benefit from what you have to say, by all means, take it.
And if you're also trying to get more referrals from other lawyers or doctors or whatever, this is where you want to post content, right?
Exactly.
To get attention.
Not saying, hey, I take referrals, you
right.
should send them to me, but if you provide consistent, continual content that demonstrates your authority and expertise, your name is going to be in the forefront of people's minds.
Right. Okay, now, and you just said it a minute ago, we have not even talked about how to write yet, right?
Exactly.
Because we're thinking about the strategy, and now we're promoting. What are we going to do with this piece of content? Because a big mistake, one of the biggest mistakes we see people make about content is they put it out there and they're like, why isn't anybody coming, right? If you build a house in the middle of the woods and you don't tell anybody, nobody's going to come visit you. This is where you got to promote your content. So let's talk about this, Jamie.
There's a couple different ways you can promote your content, and depending on, one, what your goals for that piece of content are, and two, the topic and the piece itself, one or more of these channels may be appropriate for any particular piece of content. You have paid promotion, where you can pay to boost your post on Facebook or the like. That can be very effective at driving qualified traffic to your site. You get to set demographic parameters on who sees it more likely than not. If you have a very specific sales or conversion call to action with your piece of content, this can be a great way to drive that traffic to your site. Because you're paying for it, you want to make sure that you stand to gain something from it ultimately as well. If what you're publishing is more informative or less sales oriented, paid promotion may not necessarily be the best choice for that particular piece of content, but it is one of the options. Earned promotion is when you're cashing in on the authority that you have. If you have thousands of Facebook followers, that's promotion that you've earned. People like what you have to say enough to have subscribed basically to Thoughts from Tom Foster via Facebook daily. There's no way to go about this without actually earning it. And this is only going.
And I've earned it, baby.
And this is only going to come with time and strategy and constant curation of the content that you're providing. The owned promotion is, the channels you have control over. Do you have a list of former clients or customers that you send regular email newsletters to or something? You can tailor-make content for newsletters or drip campaigns or the like. You can also recycle content that you're using for a lot of other purposes, your website, your blog. If something proves particularly popular on one of those channels, there's a good chance it may be as popular on one of these owned promotion channels like a newsletter also.
And this is like one of the most exciting things when I talk to a prospective client or a client and we find out that they, well, first of all, if you've been in business for any period of time, you have a list. Mm-hmm. Whether you've used it or not, that's it doesn't matter, but I get the most excited. Don't we get the most excited when we're like, oh, you have a list? Have you kept a database? Yes, awesome. Now we have stuff that we can promote your content to. And that's much faster, way more effective than slamming a bunch of dollars on pay-per-click or, keyword ranking. And that's really going to get you in front of the people that know you with your other practice areas. So that is where I get the most excited about your owned list, your people that you can send the content to.
You can approach it from the other way too. You can say, okay, I have this piece of content with this specific purpose in mind. Which of these promotion channels is appropriate? Or you can say, I really want to leverage one particular promotion channel. What types of content would be most effective for, say, promoted Facebook posts versus internal newsletters with a list of pre-existing names and addresses that we have.
Right, and like paid stuff, that's probably people that don't know you. Earned is a little mix, and then owned are people that do know you. And so generally the owned list is the most effective in terms of getting referrals and new business out of your list. Mm-hmm. Do you agree, Jamie?
Absolutely, and the message is different depending on the channel.
Exactly. Okay, now we can finally start writing after all that stuff. Everybody wants to jump right in and sit down and start writing, and then they think about this stuff later. But the way that we just explained it to you is the way that you should be thinking. So let's talk about how to start writing. So, Lindsay, talk a little bit about this, because Lord knows we've done so many, we put out so much content. I don't even know how much content we put out in all our years together, but let's talk about how we do it.
So basically, each article that you're writing, and this is specific to DSS, but for the format that this is laid out in, obviously, if you're writing for something else, you'll still need these pieces. But you'll start with a title, your headline, your meta description, the body, the call to action, and related links. This is just what your general article is going to be composed of. So we'll walk through each element, explain what it is, and provide you with tips on how to effectively write each piece.
So the title. What is the title? Why is the title so important?
The title is perhaps the most important aspect of any potential piece of content. It's, as you can see here in the example, it's what's seen by searchers when they do a search in, Google's the example here. But it's also one of the first places that Google's algorithm looks when looking for a brief 50 to 60 word summary of the page. That's the first place they go when they're scanning the code on your site for any particular page. What's this page about? They look at the title first. If that title doesn't match what the rest of the page is delivering upon, that you're not going to get full marks as far as optimization score goes. You want to come up with a title that's going to capture users' attention, readers' attention, but that is also informative and relevant to the content piece as a whole. This title will usually end up being very similar to what you started with in step one with your topic. So if you sat down and said, okay, I want to write something about the increase in motorcycle accidents during spring and summer months, that's a great topic starting point. Your title will probably end up something similar along those lines. But I would say that the title, and we'll get into the headline in just shortly too, but they should probably be some of the last pieces that you actually write and finalize. I would say come up with your topic, do the strategizing and everything, but once you start to sit down and write the article itself first, and then come back and be like, okay, what is a great title for what I just wrote? That way you're assuring that it's informative and matches what you've actually delivered upon.
Okay, and we're going to send this to everybody, but this is some important things to know, right? You want to make sure it's how many characters? 60 characters?
Google used to say, titles should not be more than 60 characters. They now have switched it up a little bit. They display characters by pixel width. They have a slightly varying number of pixels that they'll display as far as titles go, but it still boils down to about 60 characters. Nobody's going to sit there and count pixels. So if you keep it between 50 and 60, try not to go too far over 60. If you do, it's not going to hurt you from an SEO perspective, but as you can see here in the example, some of the longer ones get truncated when they run out of room. This is also the example I was talking about earlier when we were discussing the changes in SEO best practices and keyword targeting. Look at the search query that was typed in here. Check the IRS bounce. You can see here I highlighted one of our clients' articles that shows up for this particular search query. But I want to point out also the diversity of these titles as you go down the top 5 or 6 results here. They're all different, and none of them really exactly match what was searched upon. This is what we're talking about when Google's getting smarter and smarter every day. This is a perfect example of the latent semantic indexing that we were talking about. You don't have to hit the nail on the head anymore. Provide the information that users want to see. Google's smart enough to tie it all together and know exactly which keyword phrase is or is not related to the content that you're providing.
I'd just like to also point out that our client is number 3 after IRS. Who's got more authority than the IRS on that? So that's pretty cool.
That's the other thing worth pointing out is that the IRS is the top 2 results there. You're not going to outrank the IRS for most tax law related searches. So it's a managing expectations game to a certain extent when it comes to search results as well. Where are gains likely to be made? Who are the giants that are just not going to be toppled for a particular term?
Okay, so here's some tips on how to write this stuff.
Think about what works on you when you're browsing your favorite sites. What headlines, what titles are prompting you to click and why? What is it about one title or the other that's capturing your attention? Is it because the topic is relevant to you and interesting to you? Is there a particular hook in the title itself that's more effective than some other title written about the same topic? So I highlighted here 4 or 5 different examples that I pulled from a website just earlier today, and they all have they all are very click driven. They're trying to be enticing. They're trying to prompt you to read more, to dive in. And they all go about them in slightly different ways. And you can utilize a lot of these same strategies when crafting your own content. Take cues from the content that works on you. Put yourself, in the consumer's shoes, which you're in most of the time when you're not in your own industry-specific shoes, and think about which strategies work on you when you're the consumer.
One of the questions that we got, Jamie, and we need to hustle up because I've been yapping a lot and we got stuff to cover. But how long should the URL be? Should you shorten the URL? Does it matter?
The URL length is not really going to matter. If you're using DSS, the URL will be written basically taken straight from the title, but URL length itself isn't going to make a difference.
So those are great tips for writing titles. Now let's get into headlines, right? Headline is what? The call to action on the page once we get there.
So the title is what is displayed within the search results, and it's also what will show up in the tab at the top of your browser when you have any particular page open. The headline, we're using DSS parlance here, but the headline is basically just the H1 header, if people are more familiar with HTML, that should be on every single page. And aside from the title, which I mentioned, the first place Google looks when trying to learn what a page is about, the headline or the H1 tag is going to be the next place that it looks. Mm-hmm. The two should work together. They should tell a coherent story, and they should combine into this cohesive hook to pull you in to read the content.
Yes, that's the deal, the hook. So here's some tips.
Yeah, there's, similar to the titles, you want to be persuasive, you want to capture people's attention. You've got a little more flexibility here because you're not constrained by character length or pixel length. So if you feel like you've got a really great title, but you just can't get it into 55 or 60 characters, move it to the headline and try and come up with a slightly more truncated title tag to use, because you've got more flexibility here in the title tags, or in the headlines.
Don't go nuts. Like, I've seen some websites out there that have giant headlines that are just overdone. Look at it yourself and see if you're compelled to vomit when you read your own headlines. Like, one of the great suggestions by genius Dave Fries is look at Cosmopolitan, Glamour, look at those magazines out there that they specialize in headlines. That's the stuff that's on the front page. It's designed just to capture your eye and to get you to read more. These are great tips on this page, by the way.
Yeah, you can see how you've got more flexibility to be a little more wordy than you do in the titles, but don't overdo it. A sentence.
Don't try to jam it all in there. Okay, what is this meta descriptions? What are we talking about here?
So if you're a DSS client, if you're a Foster Web Marketing client, you will see the meta description field when creating a new page in DSS. If you use WordPress and have the Yoast SEO plugin or any of the others, you'll see the same thing. The meta description is what you can see here is pulled out in that gray text that shows up beneath the title that we just covered within the search results. It's a brief. You've got 160 characters to summarize the site, or summarize that particular page. But what we find most often is that it's a great missed opportunity for a lot of people to stick in a really strong call to action. And it doesn't always have to be salesy. If your content piece isn't sales oriented, the call to action shouldn't be either. It's not going to mesh well. Something as simple as something question mark. Read more about it here. Learn the answer here. Find out how here. That's enticing people to click, and they've seen it a million times, but that on a subconscious level is compelling them to a certain degree.
Very good. Now, what about the article body? Lindsay, let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so when you're writing the article body, first and foremost, you want to make sure you're writing for the site visitor, like Jamie said earlier, not the search engines. I know that's something we were told to do in the past, but now we're definitely moving away from that. And you want to make sure that you're writing something that you would be inclined to read. That being said, you want to make sure that you maintain a clear and specific focus and don't send your reader around the world before you give them the point of the article. And make sure that you're keeping them interested in what you're reading. You don't want them to read the first paragraph, decide that they don't like it because it's all over the place or not very focused for what they need, and then click away. That being said, you also need to make sure that the most important content you're writing comes first, so they can kind of get the idea of what you're trying to say before clicking away, and hopefully allow them to link to other articles on your site and just keep them there for a bit. You definitely don't want to put the dull information at the top and lose them before they even get started. You also want to keep your paragraphs and sentences relatively short, just because, again, the reader wants to get to the answer. They don't want to read a lot of fluff before getting to the point of what they thought they were going to be reading.
Yeah, it's like newspapers and news articles that you read. They summarize usually what the whole story is about in the beginning, and then they flesh out the detail throughout.
Don't bury the lead.
Right. And you also want to make sure that your content is reassuring your reader that if they have a problem, that you're an expert in that area and that you've got it covered. They can trust you and your team to service their needs. So you really want to make sure you're trying to convey that within your article, and also in an attempt, whether it's through a piece of content that's a library blog or FAQ or in a case result, you want to relate to them on a human, emotional level at some point as well.
This is another one that I love is the bullet points. People love to read lists, so this is a great little tactic to use.
Mm-hmm. Subheadings and bullets and lists, it just like Tom said, it's great. It provides them with the information without filler words or anything additional. You just get straight to the point. And as Jamie said before, don't cut and paste from other sites. It's plagiarizing, and it's something that's absolutely, basically forbidden, and it'll hurt your ranking in search results. And you could have other...
Yeah, you don't want people to take your stuff. Don't take other people's stuff. There's programs out there, what is it, Copyscape,
and a couple others
that you can actually put out there to see if people are copying your content, and they'll see that you're copying theirs. So just don't do that. Write your own original content. And this is a really important one, this third point here, Lindsay. What do you mean by this?
Mm-hmm. You don't want to talk over your reader's head, because ultimately when they start to feel like they're not understanding what you're trying to say, they're going to leave. They're going to search for their information somewhere else. So lots of legal jargon and medical terminology, anything really complicated that's just difficult for them to understand. Meaning if it's something that would be difficult for you to understand if you weren't an attorney or a doctor, then I would steer clear of that, or just make sure that you break it down enough for them to understand it in layman's terms.
Now, the only time that you would deviate from this, I'm sorry, but the only time that you would kind of deviate from this is if you're explaining complex terminology, like in a glossary, or what is Erb's palsy? So, if a doctor says, your kid has Erb's palsy, what does that mean? Then you want to be able to define that, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. And also with,
well, that's what
and it's kind of the same with acronyms and technical jargon. Make sure you explain it. So if this article is about Erb's palsy, you want to make sure at the very beginning you explain what it is so they can understand what you're saying throughout the article. And if you're talking about something that involves an acronym like the National Highway Transportation, something like that, make sure that you explain within your first few sentences what that is before you continue to use that acronym throughout the article. Because if your reader doesn't know what it is from the beginning, the whole article will be completely irrelevant to them.
Kind of like us saying DSS to people that aren't clients. DSS is Dynamic Self-Syndication, which is the marketing software that Foster Web Marketing clients use to update their website and market to their lists. All right, what is this? This is a question that Rachel posed before. How to link to other websites, how do you cite these resources? And we go into a little bit more detail here on that. So you want to talk about that for us, Lindsay? Why do you do this? How do you do it? What's the best way?
Well, basically, external links will add credibility to your content and provide visitors with more information. So if someone gives me a statistic, I want to confirm that that's correct. And you really just kind of want to credit back to the site that you pulled the information from. But when you're citing these statistics, explore it and make sure you provide a link. So you don't want to link all over your page and make it look like a disaster, but make sure that the main points and the really important articles that you've pulled information from are linked. The links will consist of destination and anchor text. So the destination is where you want the page to link to, and anchor text is the phrase that you'll select for your link, which basically is going to explain to the visitor or your reader what your page being linked to is about. So we generally try to steer clear of text like click here or just putting the URL in without providing the anchor text. And you want to make sure that what your anchor text really directs them to exactly what they're going to be seeing when they click. Jamie, I'm sure you can probably provide a little more SEO relevant information to that piece.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that linking, click here to learn more is absolutely a missed opportunity. It's beneficial to the users to provide clickable linked text that gives an indication of what they're going to find. So when you're looking at the examples here on the slide, if you're citing statistics like we discussed earlier, you obviously want to link back to the study or the website that you got the statistic from, but don't just say click here at the end of the sentence where you're listing your statistic. Go ahead and link the statistic itself. It will strengthen the relevance of that phrase between your site and the site that it's going to. And it also just helps the user out. External links like this, by which we mean links that go elsewhere, somebody else's website, show the user that you know what you're talking about. Internal links, links to other content on your own site. If you have, if you write several pieces of content about the same general topic, you could very naturally and contextually link them together where appropriate. If you find yourself writing and say, oh, this would be a perfect tie-in to the article I wrote last month, go ahead and link the two together. Those external links show your readers that you know what you're talking about, and the internal links help the readers know what they're talking about and what they're learning about. You're sort of guiding their hand and showing them everything that they need to know about the particular topic.
Here's a good question, Jamie. Why do some lawyers' websites rank at the top of search engines when they don't even have a blog?
There's a lot that would go into it, and there may not be one universal answer. There's a lot of things that factor into how one site ranks compared to another. If they aren't blogging, they're probably doing content of some other kind. It doesn't have to necessarily be a blog, and you can get as broad or as narrow when it comes to defining blog as you would generally like. You could define it very wide and say just any content produced at all, that's me blogging. Or you can, like we have in DSS site structure, have a very specific section of the site that is the blog, which is generally for opinion pieces and perhaps functionally different from some of the other content sections that we have on the particular website. But so I would imagine that if a site isn't blogging, it's still ranking highly. They are doing content of some kind.
Right. Some sites completely rank just for frequently asked questions.
Exactly. And it's all content.
There's no blogs. Right. It's just about the content. It's not about whether it's a blog. That's just an opinion piece. And people assume that, blogs are the only kind of content out there. But the point is being able to put out their relevant content on a frequent basis, regardless of what it is.
And I think part of the problem is just a confusion of terms, but there are also a lot of other factors that go into why any one particular site ranks the way that it does.
And then here's another good one about using links. Many of our own websites end up broken and no longer work. What does it cost for an audit and have them corrected? What do you have to do when you have to get rid of backlinks and bad links, Jamie?
Well, so it depends a little bit on whether the links are coming externally or internally. If you have a lot of broken internal links, fixing them may be easier than fixing bad links coming externally. If some other third-party website is linking to you and you don't want them to be linking to you, there's not much you can do about it. You can ask them to stop. You can say pretty please. You can even put a cherry on top. There's no guarantee it's going to work.
And sometimes you got to pay to have them taken down.
Also true.
Okay, let's move on. Call to action. This is really important. So please, let's discuss this call to action.
Well, every piece of content should have one. The call to action should come very naturally when you are first sitting down and deciding on the topic of your piece and beginning the initial strategy. Your content already has a purpose, and that purpose is going to define the call to action to a certain extent. Some pieces of content may be very conversion-oriented. Contact me now for these reasons because I can help you. Others are going to be much more informative, educational, and the call to action that you have for any particular piece of content is going to be different based on what those goals are.
All right, and here's some examples.
Yeah, we cover a wide range here, everything from, check us out on social media. This is a sort of very educational call to action. Stay tuned to learn more. If you liked this article, you might also like what we have to say over here on social media. We have some of the more sales-oriented or conversion-oriented call to actions. Call us now to figure out, how we can help you. Call us now for free, no obligation consultation with an attorney, or speak to a doctor today. Give us a call at this number. Those are examples of much more conversion-focused calls to action as opposed to the educational, informative types.
Yeah, you want them to do something once they're reading your stuff. You want them to do something, whether it's contact you or do some exercise or something. You have to tell them something to do at the end. Maybe it's just read something else.
Exactly, and related
to this point.
Related links are a great way to go about that. We discussed briefly just a minute ago how internal links to other content on your site can be a very effective way to continue to educate the reader. If you like this piece, you might also like these other pieces we've written recently. A related links box or section on, tacked onto your content piece can be a great way to put it all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
If you find yourself struggling to fit the link that you want to use in contextually within the body of the piece, there's no reason it has to be. If it fits in naturally, that's fine. But if you find yourself trying to shoehorn it in, maybe you should just include it in a handful of others in a related links section near the bottom, on the sidebar, anywhere where it's appropriate.
Right. Okay. So, the entire process.
Yeah, here's the whole thing. Find a topic, strategize, research, draft, write it first, get somebody else to look at it, edit again, and then when you think it's ready to go, send it back to the editor one more time. Never hurts. If you can get a third person involved in the process, that's not going to hurt either. You obviously want to check for spelling and grammatical errors, but sentence structure, make sure all your links work. You didn't accidentally paste in the wrong link. That happens all the time. Check it from every angle. Try to break it. People are going to click things. People are going to be paying half attention sometimes when they're reading your stuff. Make sure that you make it as idiot-proof as possible. And then finally, implement. Publish on your site whatever other strategy you had in mind, whatever promotion channels you're interested in utilizing for this particular piece. Now's when you do it all.
Very good. And I want to go back and address a question that we got about duplicate content.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about duplicate content for a minute, because when we're talking about duplicate content, don't do it, we're not talking really about pulling a piece and citing this and stuff like that. You're not going to get penalized. There's not a penalty for duplicate content, right, Jamie? You're not going to get, like, Google's not going to erase you. But basically, whoever had the original source is going to get the higher value in ranking or whatever for that particular thing. You just don't want to go out and plagiarize pages and pages of content.
If you are egregious enough, Google can drop you completely. It doesn't happen all that frequently, and you'd have to really be trying. Nobody gets to that point accidentally.
Sure.
You can reference other articles. You can quote other articles the same way you would in a college English class or any sort of research project you had to do in school. You can quote things. You can quote things at great length as long as you're citing your sources the same way you would in any other piece of writing. The way you cite sources online just happens to be through linking. Give credit where credit's due.
And sure, and like real estate websites, they're all listing the same property, right? But they have different. They're also listing other property differently. It's not the exact same thing. They're not duplicating everything, and that's what we're warning you against.
And there's some technical aspects that go into, preventing against specifically cases like the real estate thing, where content does get duplicated for, a variety of reasons, very useful reasons in some cases. But, I think that's beyond our scope here a little bit. But there are some behind-the-scenes nuts and bolts things that go into preventing those sorts of duplicate content issues.
Right. Okay, very good. All right, so thank you very much. We just have some additional resources here. If you guys would like to see some of our other oh, wait, this is from Steve Lombardi. Steve, is it better to upload PDFs to the website or link to them? Oh, and then link to it?
So I assume this is PDF of your own content that you've produced yourself. It would be ideal if that content were not in a PDF and could be put up as web content originally. If it's old resources that you have laying around, were originally on paper and you want to get them up on your website because they were super useful and relevant, and it's impractical to transpose them into a web form, linking to a PDF can be fine. There are shortcomings to Google indexing information.
It depends upon how that PDF was created. But it can index PDFs, but you're right. You'd rather have a HTML page created. Okay, very good. So that's all the time that we have today. I'm just going to talk about some quick resources. Like I said, if you would like to see some of our, watch some of our webinars in the past, FWM Tips is where you can find them. If you would like to get a design consultation, we're doing design consultations. They don't cost you anything. We tell you whether your website looks great, doesn't look great, what could be done to improve it. FWMdesign.com is where you can go get that done. Sign up for that. If you think that your site is failing and it's falling apart, then we can give you a free analysis at FWManalysis.com. And I do want to mention, for those of you that don't know or have not yet signed up, the Great Legal Marketing Summit is coming October 23rd, 24th. I know that Ben and Charlie have got some great deals going on. right now if you go to glmsummit.com, and also our boot camp on the 25th. Our next webinar is June 16th, and it's step 6. Thou shalt promote community involvement. And that's where we'll be talking about ways to strengthen your brand, get great links, get great content by participating in the community. Right, Jamie?
That's absolutely right.
All right, guys. Lindsay, Dare, thank you so much. The content queen, content czarina of Foster Web Marketing. Thank you for all your contributions and putting this great slide deck together. All yay, Lindsay. Thank you very much. And Jamie, thanks so much for your color commentary as always.
Thanks, everybody.
And Molly over there making waves at me and faces and doing our social media stuff. And thanks everybody for getting on the call today and on our webinar. And happy online hunting to you. Have a great spring. Take care.